Hello, I'm Rex Hannon with Worldwide Flyworks here in Jensen Beach, Florida. I want to tie for you today a Gurgler pattern that I tie. It's very similar to the original pattern that Jack Gertzide designed many years ago. I tie it with more synthetic materials than the natural materials that he used. I have a lot of luck with it. I catch 90% of all my largemouth bass here and probably 95% of all my juvenile tarpon on this pattern. So I have everything laid out here. I'll tell you what I use as it comes along. I begin with a B10 Stinger by Gamakatsu. It's a light wire hook, but it's very strong, and I've never had any problem losing any fish with it. So I'll begin with it. I use 110/40 denier thread, and let's get started. I begin with a thread body. I start about 1/8 of an inch behind the eye of the hook, and I'll take that back the whole way to past the bend and come back a little bit. I like to have a little bit back there underneath the craft fur that I will tie on next. And I'll go just at the bend with that. Alright. I have my craft fur laid out and brushed. I will trim a nice piece of this, probably about the size of a pencil to begin with, and I'll pull out all the under fibers, the under fur underneath, and tie that on. And I'll bring a few behind it. And back on front. And I'll trim that off. Doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to be covering a lot of that. Now I like to use a little of this real fine craft fur. This is made by Wapsi. This is just something that I add that you really don't have to. It's one of those things that you add because you like it. Doesn't really make any difference in how it fishes. Just adds a little contrast here. And I'll just tie that on a little bit. Okay. Next I will take my Palmer chenille. This is medium. For this pattern I like root beer. I'll tie this in right in front of the bulge where the craft fur was, and I'll tie that in. And then I'll just wrap Palmer this forward, pretty much right beside each other. I like to have a pretty good chunk all the while pulling it back. I just like a pretty full skirt behind my foam. All the while pulling it back. And then I'll just wrap her up, get it out of here. You can pull all the the loose ends back, wrap them. Alright. Now I cut my foam with a paper cutter, so they're pretty much uniformed. I begin by cutting small V with the color that you want on. I use 2 pieces, and the color that you want on top will begin on the bottom. So I'll put the cream back where I started the thread, start tying that off, working your way back. To where it meets your Palmer chenille. Tie that down. And then I will add, I use EP brushes simply for the ease, and I like how they turn out. I'll just start that in, tie that off. And you don't have to make these real full. I like mine to be full enough to where you don't see any dead spots in here, all the while pulling it back while you palmer it forward, leaving that 1/8 inch in the front. Just tie that off. And you take a pair of scissors that you really don't care a whole lot about here to cut the metal. Pull that back, wrap your thread for a head. I build a pretty good thread head here, because what I do next is I will take my foam, and it depends how much you want in the back here, how much of a bump. I like just a little bump, not a lot. A lot of people will pull it down tight. I like a little bit of a bump. I will pinch it in the front and wrap the thread right there. And once you have that started, you can go ahead and get that excess here by trimming it about the length you want, about right there. And I'll pull this up and I'll wrap the thread under this, a bunch of wraps to build that up, so you get a little bit of a bump there, so you get more of a pop. Take your whip finisher, finish that off. And it's pretty much done. What I do then is I will take, super glue works great. I'll take super glue and squirt it between the thread up here, or between the foam bodies up here, just a little bit. Pinch that down till it dries in a few seconds. And I will also take the super glue and put a dab on the threads up here to make it a little more durable. Side, underneath where you built that bump with the thread. And there you go. That's my gurgler pattern right there. You can add shrimp eyes if you want, but this is a deadly pattern. I catch a lot of nice fish on this. If you're in the area of Jensen Beach at the Worldwide Fly Works headquarters, stop in. I'll take a few minutes to show you how I tie these, and I think you'll like this pattern. And I hope you enjoy this video. Good luck. Thank you.